Yeah, welcome to episode 3. This is day 3 in episode 3. Let's see. Let's see if the distance starts to spread out. We'll be on like day 20, and then it'll be episode 7 because we didn't
No,
record them.
no. We're going for it, man. We're going for it. If we're not,
So
if we're not going to
yeah,
be very good, we're going to beat them up with quantity, not quality.
exactly. Just smash the algorithm into submission to get
Submission.
views. That's what we're going
Fill YouTube. Half our videos, half of YouTube's our videos.
to. It was pretty exciting. Just today published the first 2 full episodes, right? And
Yeah.
I also managed to edit 2 shorts. And with the software that I'm using is Descript, and it produces a full transcript of the video, and it's very easy just to delete parts of the text, and it automatically edits the video for me.
Right.
And then you can change the dimensions. So I put it to portrait view, took a couple of snippets, exported. It just takes a couple of minutes, literally. Upload those to video. YouTube now recognizes the length of the video, and publishes those as shorts. So they go into the algorithm and get seen by people who are just randomly scrolling through shorts. And I guess YouTube will detect the language that we're using, or the topics that we're talking about, the general theme of the channel, and start to show us to relevant people there.
Right.
Even if people aren't finding us like our full-length videos, they will see the shorts, and hopefully they'll come over to our channel and see the channel. So that's what we managed to do today for the podcast, for the launch. Now we've got episode 3. I really feel like part of what I want to talk about is productivity, because I feel like kind of overwhelmed with the amount of projects that we've got on the go. I think it's a good subject for founders and anyone who's trying to be productive, content creators. It's like, how do you juggle? How do you like keep a balance, not work 18 hours a day, and be productive? Like focused productivity is so important, especially in this day of noise. And then when we're like us, we're juggling different client projects and personal projects. It's a lot. So that's one of the themes that I wanted to put on the table for today.
I like it. I have like two minds of productivity sometimes. Like a lot of the productivity stuff is how to maximize production, right? It's like to be as productive as possible. I'm not sure that's the goal. In my opinion, that's really the ideal, because that can kind of become its own obsession and almost like take up so much energy, because you sort of start these productivity initiatives or whatever, and then you feel like, if you're falling by the wayside, or you're getting behind the timing, or whatever it is, whatever you're doing, it's like there's a lot of energy wasted there. To me, productivity optimization is about energy conservation and applied energy, because I see it as we have so much productive energy available to us in a day. And that varies somewhat based on how much sleep you've had and, so on and so forth. But in general, right, you kind of have a certain amount of focused energy available to you that could be spent playing video games, and that's that. Or it could be spent, writing your book. It could be spent, making, videos. But I find that the problem for me can be too much scattered productivity, right? A little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, a little bit, like that's when I get in trouble. Kind of doing 5 things poorly, or average at best, right? Like, so quality, right? Like I think the struggle is to get quality productivity rather than optimal productivity, if that makes sense, or maximum productivity. I don't know. How do you view it? How do you see your productivity on it?
Yeah. I used to be one of those people who would I used to use a consistency habit tracker, right? So it's kind of like it was a special app, and you put in row by row the stuff you want to do consistently, and every time you actually do it, you give yourself a tick mark, and so you see a graph, and it's color coded, so you see all of the reds that you didn't do and the greens when you did do it. And it's interesting to do it at least for a while, that kind of thing. And you learn more about yourself. But I'm agreeing completely with this idea of energy conservation is absolutely key in my mind now for productivity. Um, and um, and there's just still this question of, like, I use Obsidian for my what's called a second brain, and
Mhm.
we've been talking about that recently between us. And it allows me to connect notes with other notes and backlink them. And I've got check
Mhm.
marks and topics and tags and themes and canvases and all sorts of stuff. And it's starting to build an integrated picture. So I keep my to-do lists on there now. And I spend time curating what is meaningful to me, right?
Mhm.
In that documentation, in that second brain. And there's still a lot of stuff, and it still kind of feels overwhelming, but it feels like I've got some level of a handle on it. And I am a complicated person. I do have a lot of interests. I have responsibilities. So I'm finding a way to, like, connect the dots.
Mhm.
I think that's what it is for me. If I can connect the dots, then I'm able to consciously prioritize the stuff that I'm putting my energy into. And
Mhm.
at least I feel like I'm relatively in control. I think part of trying to be productive is to feel like you're somehow in control and you're
Yeah.
not being just pushed around by one thing and another thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. That's it's it's because I mean there's days I can be really productive at a sort of superficial level, right? But 4 hours of meetings, are they productive? Are they really productive calls? Or even if they are, how much did it cost you? Right? Could you gotten the same amount done in a 20-minute meeting and saved yourself a tremendous amount of energy just because maybe the personalities you're dealing with on that call are sort of draining to you, right? Meetings could definitely be a big one for the remote world, because we kind of live on those, right? I mean, that's the office. Otherwise, we're just on chat channels, a Discord or a Slack or what have you. But I've lately been very much not only about professional productivity, but personal, understanding, for example, that, I go to the gym on a pretty regular basis, but I can get these streaks of not going that almost happen, um, just by accident. I forget, the day goes by, this gets into that slot, that gets into that slot. Next thing I know, it's like 9 o'clock at night and I haven't gone. But if I say like I'm going at this time and I put it in as an appointment, that works. It actually works for me because there it is. I just have to protect the time and then I'm going to go. Or like now I'm trying to teach myself a lot more about AI and coding. That's something that if I just leave it as like, oh, I'm going to do that in my spare time, it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. But I want to put energy into it. That's extremely important and productive to me right now because I feel like I don't care. I'm 48 or 49 soon, I think. Um, I don't care. I just finally, like, I have to learn how to code. I'm done waiting for coders or for no coders to become great coders or AI to code for me or whatever. I just feel like I have to at least learn Python. It's supposed to be easy. We'll see. But again, if I put it in there though, I'll do it. Like I did it just before this. It was great.
Yeah, the giving yourself appointments is, I think, a very good part of it. There's a guy I'm following, Brian Johnson. He's come onto the longevity scene in quite a big way in the past 6 months. Kind
Mhm.
of a character to follow. So he receives so much criticism that he just turns it all into memes and publishes self-deprecating memes. It's
Good way to
kind
go.
of good
Yeah.
entertainment. He goes to bed every night. I think it's 8:30 p.m. that he's in bed without fail, right?
Mhm.
No late dinner parties, no late ball games, whatever, no barbecues. He just goes to bed every day at 8:30, and his view is that, first of all, that's optimum for optimum health,
Mhm.
right? And
Makes
he
sense.
basically says, he says, I should not. I'm an organism of all of these hundreds of trillions of cells. There's no reason that I should only allow the decision-making process to happen in my head.
Sure.
He says, through data, the decision is made by my metabolism. The decision is that it's the most healthy thing that I can do to go to bed on a consistent time every single day and get full REM sleep and delta wave and all of the stuff that happens. And so he's removing the decision-making authority from his head and giving it to the data, the science, or his body, his metabolism. If we can find that attitude, because part of productivity for sure is distraction and laziness.
Sure.
Right? If we're not being if we're not being as healthy as we can, as focused as we can, as positive as we can, productive as we can, I see it as a default of ourselves. We're kind of guilty for being unproductive because we're not saying no to enough different opportunities, or we're chasing windmills and whatever. So a lot of it comes down to that self-responsibility. So it's energy cultivation with an attitude of, if it is to be, it's up to me, right? I'm the decision maker, but I have to do that as a holistic, data-driven metabolic organism. Get rid of our lazy attitudes, our self-talk that gives us an excuse, excusitis, the disease of making excuses.
Well, real quick
And I
to in
think
on that, it's important to note you're not your ego. That's not you, right? You're not the mind that makes that split-second decision in the moment to wolf down ice cream. You are the totality of all these other things, right? So you shouldn't allow that gremlin to make all those calls, right?
and
Makes
founders
sense.
founders have a big hard time on that. Again, it's
Mhm.
this obsession that we can have at being productive, right? Again, the definition of being productive. Alice in Wonderland, the cat says, "Here you see, it takes all the running you can do to stay in the same place." And I think a lot of founders, a lot of people, executives and entrepreneurs and whatnot, will relate to that idea that you can work hard, but still not feel like you're actually progressing. So,
Mhm.
being productive is not being busy; it's
Right.
being, let's say, it's being effective or something.
Sure. And busy's even busy's a bit of a misnomer. I challenge people about this all the time when they tell how busy they are. And how much time do you spend on your phone? How much time did you spend before bed sitting there at night scrolling TikTok, YouTube, Google, whatever? I don't care if you're reading the Bible, right? Just like, how much time are you spending watching shows? How much time do you spend on your phone with your friend? Whatever it is, but like people aren't that busy. They just put things in the slots, right? They fill their time. That's not busy to me. Right? It's not busy.
Mm,
That's I fill my time. So if I were to say like, "Oh, how's life been?" Like, "Oh, I've been filling all my time." You're not
mm,
busy though, really. Like,
mm,
I don't know, busy implies a level of productivity, to me. And again,
mm,
it's right, it could be how you slice it, but um it all does come back down to, or my favorite for people to say when they want something. I want this. I want to start up. I wish I could start my own business, but I don't have enough time. It's like, is that true? I mean, really, can you objectively examine your week and tell me that you don't have that much time? I doubt that. I'm sure you have a lot more time
yeah.
than you think. Now, maybe you don't have the energy like we talked about at the beginning. That's different. That's different. I mean, there's a reason why we'll watch TV at times, right? It's like all we can kind of handle. And we don't want to just sit there twiddling our fingers. And maybe we already did our 17 hours of meditation. So, we're done with that. And we just want to kind of zone out and be entertained, right? That's fine. But, it's important to start with productivity by measuring yourself accurately, right? Because if you
Mm,
don't do that, well, you don't even know you don't even know where you are in the universe of it. You have to know where you are. Like, what am I spending my time doing? How much energy do I seem to have throughout the day that I could actually allocate? Because I think what people have is an allocation problem most of the time,
Hmm.
right? It's really
Hmm.
an allocation problem. I'm not allocating my time properly, and time management, I guess, is what you call that, but they are time management and productivity are kissing cousins, right? I mean, they go hand in hand.
Yeah, I think of time management as priority management.
Sure.
Um, um, the allocation problem, I think that's huge. Um,
We
I
always
had
have
an
time for what we
analogy.
care about the most, like you're saying, right? If prioritization, if you're really into something and something's super important to you, you do it.
Yeah, and so I see a lot of people will overexert themselves. They'll push and they won't appreciate the balance that they have to have. So if you take like once every hour or two, if you take just a few minutes to try and this is kind of funny, sit still, try not to think, but also try not to move the muscles of your face. So no smiling, no grimacing, no talking, because if you relax the muscles of your face, it helps the head and the brain to relax, and it helps to flush
Mm.
the whatever the toxicity, the cellular whatever activity in the head,
Mhm.
and you get kind of a cleansing process. Is what happens when you take power naps. So a 10-minute power nap
Okay.
can help to refresh. And you'll notice if you take a 10-minute power nap, you wake up, you feel refreshed.
Sure.
You're literally refreshing the brain. And if people would just be in the habit and the discipline of doing that a number of times throughout the day, it
Right.
can really add the extra couple of hours of energy that you have towards the end of the day. So that you're not just filling time pretending that you're being productive or having to zone out for a couple of hours, like you said, just scrolling social media or watching Netflix or whatever.
Mhm.
You have that extra bit of uh, gas in the tank for the end of the day to be uh, genuinely productive.
And doesn't that also points to another thing, back in my former life when I practiced acupuncture and worked with patients a lot, you know, uh, you give people recommendation, hey, really, you probably should be getting exercise, at least 3 or 4 times a week. I don't have time for that. Right. And it's like, well, that's not true. I'm sure you do, but it's not a top priority, or you're having trouble motivating, or whatever. I don't know. Maybe you have a chronic pain condition and it just darn hurts. But the other thing you'll see is people seeing these types of things like exercising or taking a few minutes to do the exercise you just mentioned, or briefly meditate or whatever. They see that as like indulgent, right? Like for somebody, if you're super busy and you say, well, I take an hour every day to go to the gym in the middle of the day. And somebody might think like, oh my God, like how do you find that time? It's like, because I get time. It's an investment. When I exercise, my productive amount of
Yeah.
focused energy available to me goes higher, never mind the other benefits, but like there's a ROI on that. It's not just I'm going because I want to have a buff body. I mean, I do. Everybody wants to be ripped and lean, but really, I mean, even at my age, I actually don't go for that reason. I go because I feel better mentally. I have less anxiety and depression. And more importantly, it gives me more of that focused time available in a day.
I notice if I don't exercise for about it's like between 2 and 3 weeks, I start to physically feel sick. Like
Yes.
I get
Yep.
a sore throat or a
Yep.
cough or I feel super lethargic. It's like
Yep.
2 or 3 weeks.
No question. My
Ha-
mood
it,
goes down,
it's
I get more
happened.
irritable. Yeah, good.
I worked with a founder once upon a time. He was a new first time founder, kind of young, and he'd been trained by whatever incubator he'd been in. He had a bottle, like a plastic protein shake bottle on his desk. And he had started off with that kind of discipline. You're a startup tech founder now. You have to be disciplined. You're going to be super healthy and stay at your desk the majority of your daytime. So it's like Soylent or some kind of, like a meal replacement shake or something. And I just noticed that I never saw him use it once.
Yeah.
So it was a remnant of maybe a year before I joined the company. And
Yeah.
now it was like something that he once did. And he was definitely not going to the gym daily. He had a good little pork belly
Hmm.
shut up under his t-shirts there, branded t-shirts. So it's funny how as founders and we go through these cycles, I think people change, times change, stresses change. We have to keep resetting our prioritizations,
Yeah.
resetting our perspective on how are we using energy? What does it mean at the moment to be productive? Like if I receive one or two new projects, I was already filling my time with the
Sure.
other 15 projects. Now I have to add another 2 projects. And so I've got to reconsider every single project
Hmm.
because I do only have so much time to fill. So it's constant reconsideration. I think it's something that a lot of founders, entrepreneurs, they probably don't spend enough time talking about or thinking about.
No, because it's I laughed my early days in the blockchain world, and especially in the early days of EOS. There was a kind of a lot of camaraderie, and there was a lot of excitement. People were working on their projects, and like in early college, when everybody wants to tell you the next day how many beers they drank last night, it's like everybody blockchain wanted to tell you how many hours they were working. That was like the badge of honor. Oh man, I've been putting in 18-hour days, or I worked 7 days last week. And I was like, but what did you really get that much out of it? Like what did you accomplish? I get it. You were around the computer, you were playing grab ass on Telegram with me. Like, you were looking at this and looking at that and flipping that link and answering that email, but like, did you get anything done? Did you move the needle? Because you also y- we have these elements so far that we're picking out, right? Prioritization, time management, and then there's efficiency. We'll say, what kind of energy do you have available to you in the day, and how are you kind of applying it? But then you also need to know, like, what is it that you fucking want to do? What are you
Yeah.
actually
What is
trying to
the,
accomplish? You just trying to be productive so you
yeah.
can tell everybody the next day you worked a lot, or what is it? Because that matters so much.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the deliverables, the outcome,
Yeah. You need to know
the
what those are,
result.
because you can't make those other decisions without it, really. And that sounds stupid, like, well, of course everybody knows they wanna get. I'm like, I don't think so. I don't think people genuinely could on a moment's notice, if you flipped them around and said, "Hey, what are your deliverables? What are your KPIs for this week?" They wouldn't be able to tell you. Maybe if there's something specific, "Oh, I gotta get this report in." Like, that's an answer, but that's not even deliverable really to me. That's more like a task you need to do. What is it? Are you trying to raise revenue? Are you trying to bring in more clients? Do you need to hire more people? Are you working on your culture? Like, what are you actually trying to accomplish? Because you need to know
It can
that.
also be
That's important.
it can also be a question as well. It's like, what are we trying to learn? A lot of I kind of keep going back to the say some that there's startups have relatively few reasons why they fail. It's very interesting to see the surveys that are done of in retrospect, they do postmortems after
Hmm.
startups have failed and they ask them, why did you fail? And there's relatively few things that they come up with. And team not being aligned is one of the big ones. Product market fit, not finding product market fit, or being out competed, or running out of money, like burn rate. Like they're relatively a handful of different things, and um and so to me, it's just like again, it's the focus, the productivity and the focus. So founders need to really think, what are those deliverables? And one of them is learning. One of them is having a question. One of them is, we
Hmm.
don't know. what we should build. So instead of guessing it, filling time, being busy, just writing code, they should have a question. It's one of the biggest strategic principles that founders do well to learn is I'm running a hypothesis. I have a hypothesis. I know what that is, and therefore I'm going to focus my productive time on answering or responding to that hypothesis, that question. Who is my customer? What do
Sure.
they want? How much time would it take to develop what we want to do? Who would we be competing against? All of that stuff. The
Right.
learning is a very good productive use of time.
Sure. How much can I charge? Where do I find these people? How much are they going to cost me to acquire? Yeah, I was just looking that up. I was asking the almighty chat GPT, product market fit, lack of market need, basically is the first one, cash flow, poor team dynamics. That's interesting as a source of failure. I mean, I guess on its face, that's kind of a no brainer, but then uh, yeah, God, that seems like, man, pick your partners, pick your partners and be careful. It's like a marriage. Ineffective marketing. I haven't seen that come up a lot. I know scaling can be an issue because if you're, startups, early days, you don't have a lot of processes and procedures, especially if there's just a couple of you and you don't necessarily need them, right? I mean, two or three of you, somebody's doing some code to get an early proof of concept. A couple business people are doing research, working on the product, so on and so forth. But I think startups almost always, in my experience, wait way too long to start organizing themselves better, getting operational processes in place from whatever tracking tasks and issues and planning and HR even, right? Because when you get to that point where you need people, it's rare a startup is going to be able to afford to hire an HR expert before they need to start hiring a lot of people, right? Because it just don't, you're not going to do that. You're not going to hire an HR person before you hire another coder early on. So you're going to have at least an HR function in the company, a process for that, right? We've gone through that. You've done an excellent job recently with some of the stuff that you've done with the dev team that we're working with, and just coordinating and using tools to you know, make sure that everybody's just on the same page because that's a special problem too. I mean, I think the data's coming out for remote teams finally, and we're starting to see best practices, but you can't have it both ways. You can't be all remote and not have good processes because there's so many things that when you're in a building together that are easy and just happen coordinating by walking by each other and so on and so forth that don't happen at all in a remote team. And so if you don't have these processes, for example, of just like ownership and kind of who owns that, right? Who's responsible to make sure that gets, over the line? And so again, it's like a macro version of productivity. It's like the startup kind of needs a productivity plan, right? Or productivity strategy, if you will.
Absolutely. And that's why I see meetings can be so helpful. I think that's what you're saying as well. You're not walking around the office, you're not sitting next to the cooler. So you should just be able to kick back and have a chat with each other on Zoom calls. It is good use of time because you're creating a bond and a relationship. And then you've got each other's back and your relationship is going to be smoother. You're going to find it easier to make agreements and prioritize the different things that you have to do. So building relationships because we work remotely is good use of time, in my opinion. It also occurred to me the concept of risk as you were reading or going through a few of those points. Risk is often seen as compliance. I think the bigger risk that startups have is kind of making assumptions.
Mm,
um, the amount of assumptions that they make, again, like you're saying with developers, sometimes you're assuming that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, or they know what they're supposed to be doing. And unless you've had that conversation, you've recorded it, you've got it in a document or a workflow management tool or something. Just like there's so many assumptions that happen in startups. Again, for me, that's about ferreting out the questions that need to be asked as your startup evolves, whether you're pivoting completely or just getting to the next step or the next phase of traction or research and development. It comes down to the R in R&D, research and development. A lot of startups focus on development.
Right.
They don't do nearly enough research,
If
right?
any.
And it's
I mean,
if any, and it's the research is where you uncover a lot of those product risk assumptions. And that's, I believe, what would help save a tremendous amount of startups, again, based on my experience of, unfortunately, very frustratingly, seeing startups destroy themselves because they race ahead. It's an amazing topic. They think they're being productive by writing code as quickly as possible to develop what they think of as a minimum viable product, because that's just the buzz term. They're just so in love with their own idea, their own piece of technology. They didn't do the research to validate it in the market. They're not being productive. They don't know how to prioritize, and 85% of startups fail.
You just summed up Web3. I mean, honestly, right? Web3's biggest challenge has been people being too in love with the tech, right? And just wanting to build this cool, nifty thing, I'm going to build this cool new bridge and it's going to move tokens all over. And so does anybody want to do that? Have people been telling you they need to do that? Can you even envision a reason to do that besides it's cool? It is cool. I agree with you. That sounds cool. But what are you going to do with it? And you don't have to wait to have customers to talk to customers, right? You don't have to wait. You have some idea, and you don't have to be perfect either. You don't need like some beautiful world-class marketing persona that came out of some, super intelligent AI and the three marketing geniuses on the planet to figure out kind of where your customer is, right? Approximately. All right. It's probably going to be around this age range, users like this. Go find them. Let's say whatever. You're trying to build a new GameFi project, right? Go over and start asking some gamers. Maybe not, doesn't matter if they're the ones who are going to definitely play a game like yours, but you're going to be able to get some pretty good answers. Hey, if there was something like this available, would you check it out? And if so, what would you want? What would you want that to look like? What would sound exciting? I mean, you just talking to people even. I don't even think you need a formal like set of questions, but we see it over and over again. Had some of our own frustrations recently with just people assuming they know exactly what the customer wants. And there's a big difference too, although let me caveat what I was just saying, take with a grain of salt. There's things people will say in a conversation and then things people actually do when they have to pay. So be careful. Don't just, something can sound great, but you definitely should say something like, well, how much would you pay for that? Because if they start bristling or go, I don't even know, that's probably an indicator that they like the idea. It sounds cool, but they wouldn't pay for it, right? And as soon as possible, find that out. Talk to the people who are paying you money first, as soon as you can.
Yeah, one of the topics there is UX research, right? And part of UX research is UX interviews. And that's another big area that founders do not do enough to study up on. And because it seems kind of like common sense, you think, I know how to talk to people and ask them questions. I've got an idea. I'm going to go and talk to the guy and see if he likes the idea. Nothing wrong with that. Can't go wrong. I'm going to learn loads. All I need to do is talk to 10 people, tell them my idea, and they're going to tell me if it's a good thing or not. And I'll have the validation, and I can take that market research to my angel investors, and they're going to give me a few $1 million.
Right. Sure.
The truth is, I'm not even a UX researcher. That is not my specialist profession over the past 15 years. But I have worked with crack cocaine ninja UX researchers, and I've absorbed some of that mentality. and I have had to do UX interviews a bunch of times, and I've read the literature. So I'm not the best in the world at it, but I have a very high respect and appreciation for the nuance, logical. It's like coding human psychology to not put words in people's mouth
Right,
and to
right,
not
right.
take what they and and to not take what they say as, like you said, like maybe they'll like the idea, but when it comes time to ponying up to pay for it, then
Mhm.
they're gonna like back out of the deal here. So one of the things is asking people about their context, asking people what do they currently do now in
Okay.
physical, real world reality
Uh,
to accomplish a particular thing,
sure.
right?
So give
So
me an
if you're
example. Give me
talking
an
about,
example.
well, you said something about bridging tokens or something. So
Right.
what is that even in the realm of doing? Is that a token swap, or what does that
Maybe a little bit
achieve?
like that, like ish, right? But it's the idea of, right, we have such a walled garden in this industry. I want to be able to move an EOS token to Ethereum. I'd like to, why do I have to get a whole new wallet or why do I have to turn it into something else first, right? That kind of thing.
Okay, so okay, fine, great, perfect. So like a cross chain kind of token swap,
Yep.
right? So so if I had to do that and it was for a business reason, so that sounds like maybe it's a large chunk of change, maybe it's a frequency of transactions or something. That might add some complexity. But would I go and invest in a project that's going to take like a year to develop a multi-chain swap liquidity management AMM stuff, and it's going to cost $1 million to do it? My first thing would be, how can I get the action done today? How do my customers get the action done
Ah,
today?
right, right.
They they transfer the money to Binance
That's
and
interesting.
they swap Telos for Ethereum, and then they send the
Yep.
Ethereum to where it needs to go. It takes them 5 minutes. They've got to log on their two-factor authentication code, and they've got to go through the drama. Um, but if they only need to do that on like a week-to-week basis once, then what is the pain or the friction that we would actually be addressing for the amount of
Right.
investment that it would require to develop this alternative solution?
I love it.
So
I'm actually writing this
we're
down. You've said this before, but this bears to note. I'm just going to emphasize this, but you're saying, if how is it, if can it be done today and how is it done? Like sometimes the answer is no, it can't be done at all. That's fine. That's different. But if it can, reverse engineer it. How much time, how much cost, how much trouble, God, that's brilliant. And God, I haven't even done that enough. I'm going to put that in my chat GPT business prompt. Thank you, Gav. I'm sorry. Continue, sir.
so 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 we're understanding the context,
The
and
context, the cost,
yeah,
the how do you reverse engineer it, right? I think that's where you were going. Like, how's it
so
being done
yeah,
today?
so I ended up calling it a substitute solution. So what we're
Substitute.
saying is, all
Okay.
right, it might not be the ideal solution, and we want to know, but they've got a problem or they've got a job to do. How do they solve it today? And then when we're really crystal clear on exactly what their entire workflow is, because we want to model that out in detail to really, really, really understand it. And again, most founders, most executives, they do not do this kind of research. It's not rocket science. I don't like that phrase, but it's just not rocket science. But people just aren't aware. They don't have that experience. Again, the UX research kind of process is what we're talking about here. Once you've understood their current goal, the job to be done, the thing that they're trying to do, and you've understood how they do it today, the next thing is to find out what don't they like about how they currently do the thing, right?
Yep. Where are
What
the
is
pain
the pain?
points? Yep.
What is the friction in the process that they currently do? So if they say, well, I'm not too bothered about it. What I do is send my Telos to Binance, swap it. It takes me 5 minutes. I withdraw the Ethereum. It doesn't affect my accounting stuff that I have to do. It just takes 5 minutes of my day. I know how much it is. It's not really much of a friction point. It's not a pain point. hopefully you're going to learn something from that little interview, right? It might not be the big commercial windfall that you might be hoping that it is. But
Right.
you're going to go and validate that with a bunch of other people, right? So similar conversation, 20, 30 people, and those people have to be relevant. They actually have to genuinely have the job that you're thinking to solve for, not
Right.
just thinking it through from a different, like, I don't have that job. So I'm not going to be a good candidate to ask me those questions as if it's
Mhm.
validating the product concept. Um, but yeah, so finding something that causes a lot of pain, and then you take that away. That's your customer discovery, your customer insight interview. And then you go away and start prototyping, not
And that's how
coding.
we get tying it all back into our idea of productivity. If you're just going off, full of piss and vinegar in one direction, assuming you've got the holy grail, that's not productive. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're being productive as an organization. You may be everything but productive. You may be being actually destructive, right? Because you're just burning time, energy, resources, and effort full steam in one direction. You never stop to think, what is it that we're really trying to solve here? Are there other ways that it's being done in the market today? What are those ways? How much do they cost? Do people like it? Are they satisfied? Even if something takes longer and you can make it shorter, that doesn't necessarily mean anybody gives a shit. Because if they do it in the background while they're watching their Netflix or playing their video games or jerking off, whatever they're doing, nobody cares. Like, I can make you do
I
that
got
faster. It's like, so I don't care. Like, I just, it gets done. I don't need it to be faster. It means nothing to me. It doesn't change anything in my life. Like, it has to move the needle.
Exactly. I've got a really funny analogy with this. You might already know this one, but the US, was it NASA or I don't know, the US military, they realized that biro pens do not work well in space, right? The
Okay.
ink gets stuck on the metal ball or something.
Mhm.
So they invested like however many millions and years to research a pen that works in space, and they developed it. I don't know how much it cost. And then like the International Space Station, right? You get astronauts from different places, and the Russians show up, and they had a pencil.
Pencil, right. I solved it. $100 million pencil right here.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah,
So,
yeah, maybe you
so,
just had the wrong tool. You just had the wrong tool.
so,
Oh my god.
so,
That's funny.
so that's it. So like, and we can laugh, we can find those analogies. It is serious business. Investors don't always know how to evaluate the commercial viability of a product, but they're excited. They want to make money. They got to invest in
Mhm.
something. They like the team. They think that they'll pivot if they don't figure it out. That whatever. And then the team goes and chases rainbows because now they've got the pressure of the investor that they've just,
Mhm.
lifted $2 million off. And so they want to show productivity. So they're going to be writing code. They can't in 6 months' time or 3 months' time go back to the investor with their monthly investor report and say, we've done 50 interviews. The
Right.
investor's going to say, "Are you kidding me? All you've done is interviews?
Right.
What are you doing interviews for? Show me some code."
Right. Show me some
And
code.
so there's just so many problems that are wrapped up in the current way that we, unfortunately, that founders and the investment community pursues development.
And just pursues that idea of just productivity, get something done, just go after it. Not a lot of thinking, not a lot of figuring out how best to deploy these resources. What are we actually trying to accomplish at the end of the day? Are we just trying to build cool tech? That's called open source. Like, that's not a business. Go do that. That's amazing. Love you for it. Thank you. It's not a business model. Cool tech's not a business. That's just a thing to do in your spare time if you're able and capable, and God bless you for it. But that's not a business. Your business is value creation, right? Are you doing something that people want to pay for, are willing to exchange value for. If they aren't, then you're dead in the water. It doesn't mean anything. I think so. A caveat here, something that's always stuck with me as a bit of, I guess it's kind of it's evolutionary psychology to some degree, but uh, anatomy teacher of mine back in the day, was big about human beings are newness junkies. He's like, they're new junkies. They're
Yes.
like, because we're tuned, right? In the environment and the savannah, 50,000 years ago, if you see something new, you check it out because there's a probability that that's potentially, a game changer, so to speak. I hate those two words together, but it could be
Mm,
massive, massive discovery, right? So you're gonna go, or it could be a threat, right? Well, either way, you don't know how to evaluate that thing. So you're gonna go toward it to evaluate it to figure out what's going on over there. And I think that same thing happens in a sense, both with investors and with founders. Just always thinking to build something new, right? Back to it ties into the pencil and the pen, right? Do you need to
mhm,
build something new, or if you really are right, because you say you want founders that are obsessed with solving a problem. That's a big one, right? It's a big indicator. A lot of
mhm.
VCs will say that, and I agree with them. I think that's definitely a good indicator that you've got yourself a project worth putting money in. Someone's obsessed. They want to solve this problem, whatever it is. Doesn't mean you need to build something new, right? It doesn't mean you need to just, go out there and start from scratch. Maybe all you need to do is reverse engineer the way it's done now and fix that one segment, that one leg of the journey that's too expensive, too time consuming, too painful, too difficult, whatever it is. Cause I think we recently, I'll toot it a little bit, but with our high fidel stuff, I think that the wallet login that we've built eliminates a piece of I might be wrong, but I think this has been a predominant source of friction for Web3 from the beginning, which are public and private keys, and just assuming that we have to have users deal with them, that it's some sort of affront to the sensibilities of Web3 that people don't want to save their public and private keys in some damn paper fucking wallet in their safe and their fireproof box and sub brain key. I don't know, but like, no, they don't have to do that. There's encryption. That's great. And public and private keys have given people a sort of new way in which to protect their value, their wealth, their tokens. But forcing people to deal with them, I think there's a psychological thing to look at a key that's that long and that seems to bear so much responsibility all of a sudden. And I think people's reaction to those are almost like we're behind the screen where the wizard is. I don't want to know how the wizard does it. I just want to watch the show. I don't want to know. I just want to use a password. Why can't I use a password? Right. And if you can take a certain piece of friction out, this thing that everybody thinks is so difficult, they think it's all of it, right? They think it's all, well, it's just Web3 is too hard. People don't like dealing with wallets and blockchains. And I don't know, maybe they just hate private keys and public keys. And if you go to a password login, it changes everything for them, right? Because it's suddenly a Web2
Or
experience. I don't know.
or QR code, right?
The QR code, right? Exactly.
There's a
Um,
lot of Web2 services now that instead of having password, it's just an email, and then they send you an email, and you have to go to your email address,
mhm,
your email box, and find the link, and that auto logs you in. That's one approach.
mhm,
It can be pretty smooth, especially if the email shows up instantly. It's not too
mhm.
much of a hassle. But
Yeah,
things like
Substack's
that.
like that, right? Isn't that what Substack
Mhm,
does? Yeah, I think so.
mhm. And so with QR codes, you just shoot with your camera the QR code on the screen, and it. What we've got is a wallet that stores the credentials for the user,
Yeah, I love it. I
and
say
then you.
tell people the wallet's the key. Like, there's your password.
Yeah,
This is it.
yeah.
This is your access. It's perfect. People don't lose their phones that often. If they do, there's ways to, shut them down remotely now easily. Call your provider. They can do it for you in seconds, right? And there you go. It's just I think it's going to be. I know that the people that I've showed it to so far are quite impressed, but I don't know, maybe we're
And
tangent.
sometimes,
Keep going. Finish your thought.
yeah, maybe just to start to wrap up here, I guess. I
Mhm.
don't know how long this is. Sounds like a good session. What was it on my mind? Oh, so sometimes entrepreneurs, founders, they're looking for something, a new piece of technology. Sometimes you don't need that. Like you said, you can just you repurpose, reuse something in a different area. Um, what I'm working on is like I'm a big crypto trading fan,
Mhm.
and I also want to cash out my portfolio at the right time this
Mhm.
time, which I think will be in 2024, 25. And it occurred to me, and I thought maybe I should have a crypto YouTube channel. I've thought that for like 5 years. And I always think, first of all, I always think other people, like it's already, the market has been taken. There's a lot of good stuff, and there genuinely is. There's a lot of terrible ones as well. Um, just people that don't know trading, they haven't done it before really. They're just, I think we touched on this even just yesterday, that they get sponsorships and whatever. It's a lot of shady stuff.
Mhm.
But it occurred to me that people focus on buying crypto. What about if I produce a guide for how to, like the seller, or something like the seller's guide to crypto, or the
Right.
crypto seller's guide, or something about selling. I'm taking the same market opportunity, is my point, and finding a different angle. Sometimes
Right.
that's all you need to be
Right.
able to get traction with the same kind of a product offering. And I
Mhm.
feel like a lot of times investors, VCs, angels, and also founders, they're looking for something that might seem a bit too clever or
Yeah.
unnecessary.
Yep.
It's like, we have a new way to do something, but like, so what? Maybe just reposition what we already do for a new segment of the market or a new angle that gets you attention. And that can be far more viable, commercially viable, to build a strong business with. So that's my theory. I think the crypto market wants to know how to sell crypto, not how to buy crypto, because that's been, or that's covered. So that's one of my projects that we can keep coming back to on our podcast and see how I'm doing with building up that audience.
No, I think you're right though. It's important, right? Because it's not worth anything until you sell it, really, right? It's just a number. You bought it at a number and now you're holding it. And whatever gains or losses of the day, none of them are realized yet. They're all unrealized, right? You don't get to the realized gain or loss until you actually press the sell button. And that is, it has to be, it's of course it's as important as when you buy, right? Everybody's obsessed with wanting to buy low, right? But it's buy low, sell high. You have to get that side right too. And I'm with you. We've talked about this a bunch, but I think it's the psychology is massive on that. But yeah, it's a kind of it's the unsexy thing to draw it back to this idea of always wanting something new or different, and it's just yeah. All right.
The
Well,
novel, yeah, the
novelty,
novelty factor.
newness. Why go to space with a pencil when you can make $100 million pen? It's not cool, man. The Russians weren't cool. The Americans were
Yeah.
like, "Look, dude, we got pens." They were like, "We have pencils, assholes," and a lot more money. That must have just been like mind blowing in that moment. I can only imagine what a kind of funny slash sad moment of of a evaluation or yeah. Anyway, I'm losing it. Okay, hey, 3 days, 3 days, Gab. We're gonna keep going. We're not. I swear to God, days. I'm coming on by myself. We're gonna have to make that plot to each other. Like, if you don't come on, I'm coming on anyway, and I'm gonna impersonate you, and it's gonna be horrible. You're never gonna want me to do it again. I'm gonna be like, "Yeah, I'm Gab, and I think Dom's cool. Yeah, Dom should talk now." We gotta do it. We're gonna keep
We can
going.
talk. We can talk. we'll talk about each other in the absences. There you go.
Or I'm gonna AI you with like Kermit the Frog.
Well, I can technically, I can do that with Descript. It records our voice. I can plug in just a text script, and it will reproduce the script with my voice. How amazing is that? Then I
Yeah.
just need the video component, and yeah, this
I'm
will be.
chomping at the
We'll
bit
have.
to go off on some AI stuff. We'll have to talk about that.
Yeah, all right. Future episode. Oh, that was a good teaser for the upcoming show. So
For
if you're
sure.
not into productivity or crypto, web founding, investment, then for sure you're into AI. So stick around for the
Yep.
podcast because we'll
We're
be
gonna get it.